Good morning, church family. Thank you for honoring me in that way. That was very kind and a surprise. Listen, my goal was never 20 years, though. My goal is to go the distance. And that's my heart. And how about let that be everybody's heart? So let's get after it together, everybody. Let's do it together. If you were around in the 90s, there weren't a lot of options if you wanted to talk to somebody who wasn't right in front of you. If you liked somebody and you wanted to talk to them, you would have to call their house phone. One phone for the whole house. How scary was that? You want to call that girl and you're just praying that her dad doesn't answer the phone first. Oh, hey, Mr. Smith. Is Sarah there? And he's like, who is this? Who are your parents? What are you doing? What's your ambitions in life? That's a scary thing. I can remember in the 90s, we got our first cordless home phone. No longer bound to the cord. We could move around, have a little privacy. Wasn't all just around in the kitchen. That was great. Come on, who had a pager? Anybody have a pager? What a time to be alive. Some of you are like, what is he talking about? This little box you clip to your belt, and it's a one-way message. And it was all numbers, and you had to get creative with it. It had a code. Hey, you would message 143. I love you. That's how you got the message across. But in the 90s, for me, I just remembered writing notes. That was the big deal. That's what you would do. You would write letters and you would fold them and you just hope that they wouldn't get caught in class. But I mean, people got creative. This is origami. I mean, you'd get a letter, it'd be in the shape of a swan. You pull its tail and boom, 7-page letter front and back that you had to read. Those love notes back in school, let me share a few with you. Here's one, I love this. She says, are you ready to be there when I'm mad? Or need to cry? I can do things that I can't do with anyone else but you. This is the reply. Yes, I'm ready, unless I'm eating fried chicken. She replies, so chicken is more important than me? Only fried chicken, and only when I'm hungry. But if not, then you're the only thing I care about. Come on, church, that's healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries right there. Here's another love letter. Dear Ashley, would you please be my girlfriend? I like you a lot. Please put yes, no, or maybe. Her response is this. I'm sorry. I already have a boyfriend. His name's Kyle. But when we break up, you're my next choice. P.S. That will probably be in a month or two. Just the way things are going, that's my guess, right? Oh, my goodness. One more. Y'all got one more in you. Here we go. One more love letter. I love you with all my butt. I would say heart, but my butt's bigger. Come on, somebody. Come on. Hey, those notes, they're complicated. It's funny. But listen, some of us have never graduated past 5th grade when it comes to learning how to have healthy relationships. We've built relationships on an unstable foundation. Sometimes we build them solely off of physical or emotional experience. If it feels right, it must be right. If it feels good, it must be good. And we follow what feels good physically and emotionally, and that becomes the base for our relationships. But what happens? One day you wake up and realize they're not doing it for you anymore. They're not making you happy anymore. So we feel like, oh, we must need to find someone else because obviously they were not the right person. When we build relationships like this, that foundation won't last. It's unstable. If you missed last week's message, go back on our app, on YouTube, and check it out. But what's the main cause of this? Like if you ask people, what kills a relationship? You'll get a lot of different responses. There'll be a lot of responses to what could kill a relationship. It could be stress. It could be fights about money and finances. It could be poor communication. It could be trust issues or family dynamics, or it could be about the past that you've never gotten over. All those things are okay, but I don't think that's the number one killer of relationships. I want to share with you today, we're going to talk about the number one relationship killer, and here it is. It's selfishness. It's selfishness. Here's our working definition for selfishness this morning. Being concerned with one's own interest above the interest of others. It's all about me. What about me? What do we say? Treat yourself. You do you. It's all about you. And the problem building a relationship all around you is that there's only room for one person, and that person is you. It's all about you. It's all for you. It's all you. Listen, we all have a tendency to be selfish. You want proof? Group photos. Come on, when you're in a group photo, you only look at one person, and that's yourself. You don't care if other people are cross-eyed, have spinach in their teeth. If you look good, post it. You can just go ahead and post that picture. All right, we all have a tendency to be selfish. What does selfishness look like? There's 6 signs of selfishness. This is one you would definitely want to get on our app or tap your phone to the plate to follow along with the notes this morning. Here's some signs of selfishness. It's when you pursue personal gain over the gain of the relationship. The idea is that it's all about what I can get out of it instead of how can we grow in this. It's what I can get instead of how we can grow. Here's another sign of selfishness. It's not attending to the needs of others. You're looking out for your own needs, your own interests. You're always looking out for number one. Here's another one. You feel entitled. You're feeling entitled to more than what that person can offer you. They should be giving me more time. They should be giving me more attention. They should be buying me more stuff. Whatever it is, these are statements that show signs of selfishness. Here's another sign of selfishness. It's the lack of empathy. You stop caring. You stop feeling. You stop sharing those feelings. And you kind of get in this rut of it is what it is. And you just kind of hit cruise control in the relationship. You're not investing. You're not showing empathy. Here's a phrase that shows selfishness. It's my way or the highway. Since when did it go from until death do us part to my way or the highway? What changed? What changed in you in the relationship that led to that? Here's the last one, avoiding sacrifice. When a sacrifice is avoided, the result is now selfishness creeps in. Selfishness creeps in any healthy relationship. There's got to be sacrifice there. It's got to be a part of it. So those are the signs that we look for, but it leads to something. What is the result of selfishness? What's the result? Well, it's distance. It creates a wedge between you and them, and people don't want to be around you. They don't want to be a part of that when they realize it's always about you. Another result of selfishness is there's resentment. That the people closest to you start harboring frustrations with you. Well, they didn't do what I asked them to do. They didn't keep their word. They didn't show up the way I needed them to show up. And now there's resentment that's built in, and there's distance there. And then there's disagreements. Disagreements, that small, solvable problems turn into big, massive fights. You start fighting over the small things. And listen, when you live in selfishness, you start looking at things through a different lens. It creates a new lens in how you see people. So let me say it this way. What you idolize in the beginning, you begin to demonize over time. Because there's selfishness that's creeped in, things have changed. You used to idolize it in the beginning, now you demonize it over time. When you were dating, oh, they're so funny. Oh, they make me laugh. I love their stories. I love their jokes. But over time, it's like, why can't you ever be serious? When you're dating, oh, they're so carefree. They're so easygoing. They're so laid back. Over time, it's, why are you so lazy? Why can't you do anything? It changes over time. If your expectation is for someone to meet your every need, listen, the moment they fail you, you're going to get mad at them. You're going to feel like they've shortchanged you because they were supposed to make you happy. Listen, anytime Suzanne and I get in a petty argument, and by the way, if you're married for any amount of time, you're going to experience arguing over petty things. But anytime we argue over petty things, we realize that we're arguing over petty things, and the result of that, the root of that, is because we're acting in selfish ways. We're trying to keep score. And to be honest, the majority of the time, it's me that's being selfish in those moments. But we realize, hey, petty arguments, these are small things that shouldn't be big things. There could be selfishness there. And here's another result of selfishness is doubt. That trust is questioned, right? We say, do they even care? Is this even worth it? And listen, the more selfishness that's there, there's going to be more distance, more resentment, more disagreements, more doubt. There comes a real unhealthy cycle at play that there's a problem. And listen, the relationship starts to suffer. C.S. Lewis once said, selfishness has never been admired. Selfishness has never been admired. You think about it. You find somebody who's been married 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, and you ask them, what is the secret to your long-lasting marriage? They're not going to say, oh, you just got to have it your way all the time. Oh, just make sure that you're always right. Just make sure that you win every argument. No, that's not what they're going to say. They're going to say it's all about preferring the other person. It's all about that we're a team, that we're going to stick with it through thick and thin. That's what's admired. So listen, selfishness is a sickness that must be intentionally treated for the relationship to survive. It's something that is a sickness. It's going to get worse from here. We have to treat it. We have to deal with it. If you want your friendships to survive, if you want your relationship with your kids to survive, if you want your relationship with your siblings to survive, if you want your marriage to survive, you got to deal with the issue of selfishness. It will make you sick. You can ask Susanna, the moment I start getting sniffles, the moment I start feeling a cold coming on, man, that's when I up it. I'm taking vitamin C. I'm taking zinc. I'm going to start drinking more water. I'm going to do the sinus rinse and the neti pot. I'm going to get the humidifier out. I'm going to all in because I don't like being sick. I don't like where that's going to go. I want to be as healthy as possible. So we got to do the same thing. We got to be intentional to attack this now. We know the signs. We know the results. It is the number one relationship killer. So we're going to have to deal with selfishness so our relationships can thrive. So how can we overcome selfishness? The Apostle Paul wrote to the church of Philippi, and he addresses this very issue. I want to share it with you now in Philippians chapter 2. We're going to read verses 1 through 5, then we're going to go back and break these down. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in his spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one mind. What's Paul saying here? Hey, I want you to have healthy relationships. I want you to get along. I want you to be drama-free. Listen, it only takes a pulse to fall in love, but it's going to take a plan to stay in love. Paul's like, I got a plan for you. How? He goes on to say, this is it. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. The root word there in Greek is where we get the word narcissist. And what's he saying? It can't be all about you. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others. In your relationship with one another, listen, church, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. Our standard is the same mindset as Jesus. Come on, there is never a more selfless person, never a more giving person, never a more sacrificial person than Jesus Christ. He is our example of how we treat others. So how do we overcome selfishness? Number one, remember you are a product of grace. You are a product of grace. It's not about how great you are, come on, it's about how great our God is. You can't start believing your own press. You can't start buying into the hype that you're great and now people owe you and that you're entitled. No, it's not about us. It's about Jesus. Let's go back in Philippians 2 as a reminder of what God's grace has done for you, how your life has benefited from it. What does it say again? If you've had encouragement because you're united with Christ, comfort from his love, coming, sharing in his spirit. If there's tenderness that you've experienced, compassion that you've experienced, you need to be locked in to this mindset that Jesus has. See, the root of this is knowing who you are and what Christ has done for you and never forgetting it. Never forgetting it. That you got problems, you've got issues, you've been the problem a lot of times, and it's by the grace of God that you are where you are. That it's the grace of God that you've been saved, you've been rescued, you've been redeemed. Remember that. And let it start shaping the way you think about relationships. Let how Jesus treated others, you start emulating that and following his example. Romans 12:3 says this, for by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself or herself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. See, the condition of your heart will determine the condition of your relationships. And we got to come out this with some sober judgment. We got to understand the gift of grace that God has given us and that we got to measure up to the faith that God has given us. Do you know, have you measured, have you counted how much God has poured into you? How great his grace has been to you? The compassion he's offered you? The sacrifice he's made for you? This is it, church. See, when I focus on his grace, I can't help but feel grateful. That's where we are. When we focus on his grace, we can't help but be grateful. When I live out of the grace that Christ has freely given me, I'm thankful. And guess what? Thankful people are healthy people. To be able to say, I have enough, I am enough, my wife is more than enough. Come on, she's all that in a bag of Doritos, everybody. Come on. We're just going to say we are grateful for the people God's placed in our lives. We're grateful for the grace we have. We're going to focus on that grace. Guess what? We'll be able to be gracious to other people when we do. Here's the other side. When I forget his grace, I can't help but feel entitled. When I forget how good he's been to me, I feel like it's all me. That you experience success and think it's all about you. That people owe you now, that you're entitled to that. No, it's all a gift from God. He's been gracious to us. Be gracious to others. Great relationships are only possible when we allow God's grace to work in us. We got to allow it to enter into the mess of our relationships, to reorder our priorities, to bring healing and restoration to what's broken. We got to remember, first and foremost, that we're a product of God's grace, but then we need to seek to serve others. That's our second step to overcoming selfishness. Seek to serve others. Again, going back to Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. Value others. That means we're going to build others up. That means we're going to believe the very best in others. That means we're going to do things that add value to their lives. We see how Jesus did this in verses 5 and 7. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. Well, what did Christ Jesus do? He made himself nothing by taking on the very nature of a servant. And that's a word you want to underline, highlight, and circle. The mindset of Jesus to add value to others was to serve. So a healthy marriage is two selfless people working hard to outserve the other person. Let me say that again, church. A healthy marriage is two selfless people working hard to outserve the other person. Serving others adds value to them. This is where we take a little deeper dive that the Greek word for value there, even though he's talking about relationships, isn't a relational term. It's more of an accounting term. That there's a ledger of deposits and withdrawals. And he's saying, man, we're going to add deposits into people's lives to add value to them. We're going to increase the value by what we add to their lives. That every action, every word, they all count. And they're either adding value or subtracting from people's lives. So we got to think of a piggy bank. I have two piggy banks. They look like mailboxes, okay? They're piggy banks. And you got to think that everybody has a piggy bank. Everybody has an emotional bank account. And you can either put deposits in there or withdrawals. So let me say it this way. Selfishness is a drain in the relationship. So every hurtful comment, every rude remark, every time you're not preferring them, every time that you ignore chances and opportunities to connect with them in meaningful ways, it hurts them. Come on, when I take a nap on the couch and I sleep on the decorative pillows, that drains my account, okay, everybody? Susanna does not like that. And I still do it. I should do it. It drains the account. But hear this. Service is a deposit into the relationship. When we serve other people, when we prefer them, we're adding value to their lives. When you send that encouraging text message before they walk into that big meeting, you're adding value. When you cook their favorite meal without them even asking, adding value. When you tackle that sink full of dirty dishes, come on, somebody. The sound of the dishwasher running, it might as well be R&B music, okay? When you help get the kids ready for bed, you bathe those suckers, you put jammies on them, you tell them a night-night story, you pray for them, it's a deposit. When you give them space to watch the big game, you just go, I'm going to let you watch the game in peace. Come on, that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. That's not my own personal request, okay? This is a hypothetical situation. But listen, that picnic you plan, that massage, just a massage, nothing else, just massage. That walk together, adding value. Guys, when you get home from a busy day of work, but you still go to your spouse and you say, honey, how was your day? Then you listen intently. Then you follow it up and say, and then what happened? Oh, yeah. Here's the deal. Research has shown that we have to live to a 5-to-1 ratio just to maintain health in a relationship. That means we got to have 5 positive deposits for every 1 unhealthy withdrawal. They're not all equal. I mean, a withdrawal is coming, so we got to build up relational and emotional equity in one another. Because there's going to be rough days, there's going to be down days, but this is daily. It doesn't have to be a big thing over the top. It's just the daily, consistent, intentional ways we love each other. So initiate this. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. You will go ahead and make that deposit in them. You got to embrace whatever inconveniences are necessary to ensure that you've created an environment where your spouse and in your relationships with other people, that they feel that value. And here's the deal. Love is a choice. Love is an action. Love is a verb. Jesus took it a step further and made love a command. It's a commandment. That means we're going to do this beyond how we feel. Inside of a marriage is every emotion under the sun. There will be days where you're like, oh my goodness, I love you so much. I adore you. There will be other days, if I hear them chewing loudly one more time, Lord, smite them now. So what are we going to do? We're going to just make sure that love is a choice, that we're going to have feelings every day, but we're going to choose regardless to act in loving ways toward one another. That the foundation of staying in love is for love to be a verb, to seek to serve one another. But we're going to make these deposits out of service by adding value to them. And this is what I believe. Motion creates emotion. That you keep pouring into each other's love bank, even if you don't feel it, even if they're not reciprocating it, you keep pouring in, and those emotions will happen too. That reconnection will happen. You let your spouse know that you're praying for them every single day, and we're just believing that those positive emotions will be reciprocated. Hey, listen, in the movie Frozen, Anna was willing to fall on Han's sword to save her sister Elsa. Come on, Bruno Mars sings about he will catch a grenade for you. Why? Because they know what we know, that love is going to take sacrifice. It's going to take sacrifice every single day. We're going to serve. So here's the deal, church. The opposite of being selfish is being a servant, just like Jesus. And true happiness isn't found in what you get. It's found in the life you give. So I got to ask you this question. When is the last time you intentionally served someone you loved? Regardless of the relationship status, when's the last time you just intentionally served those that God has put in your life? Let me speak to singles for a moment. If you're single and you're hearing this, you think, well, this doesn't really matter. Because it's really all about me right now. There's no one else, and I just need to invest in me. Yes, invest in yourself, but hear me. Singleness is not a season to be selfish. It is a season to serve. This is a season for you to serve. Make it about who God has called you to be. Serve others and run after Jesus with everything you got. And eventually, as you're running, you'll notice somebody's running alongside of you, that they're serving others, that they're running after Jesus, and you look over at each other and you think, hey, we could do this together. Like this could be it. So don't miss this season to serve. God could be setting up that for a beautiful season later, but we're going to do that. We're going to run after Jesus, no matter the situation. Here's the third thing. Serving others develops staying power. When we serve others, it develops staying power. So we remember God's grace. We seek to serve others. And this is what we see later on in chapter 2. Do everything without grumbling or complaining or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God, without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Listen, church, then you will shine among them like stars in the sky, as you hold firmly to the word of life. And then I'll be able to boast on the day of Christ. When is that? The end of time. That what you're doing now, listen, will echo to the end of time. You keep serving, you're going to shine. You hold firmly, and you're going to be able to have some staying power. You're going to be able to stay with it. Love stays. Love stays. Even when staying is hard. What do we declare in our marriage vows? I promise to love you for better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. We say this because we understand that true love is a willing commitment to stay. To say, I'm not leaving, I'm staying right here, no matter what. It's daily dying to self. It's daily. It's daily, but listen, it's also your destiny. There's also a long game to play here. Last week at Encounter Night, if you've never been to Encounter Night, it's our first Wednesday service. You got to check it out. But during that Encounter Night, we went through the story of David and Goliath. After that message, I just kept reading 2 Samuel. I kept reading the stories of David and his life, and this is what I discovered. And maybe you didn't realize this, that David and Goliath was not the only battle that they had to face against a giant. We love studying David and Goliath. That was not the only giant battle that the Israelites experienced. If you look at 2 Samuel chapter 21, we're not going to read all of this, but as you read it, you understand that there's another guy that came along and he killed a Philistine giant. And then they killed another one who was a descendant of giants. Then they killed the brother of Goliath, who was also a giant. And then they encountered a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. And he was killed as well. There are actually 4 more giants, descendants of the giants. And they were killed. Listen, church, each generation had their own giant. But because of David's example, they were able to have victory. So what was a big moment for David became an everyday thing for his descendants. I don't want you to miss this, church. We got to keep killing selfishness. It's the number one killer in relationships. It's going to be tough. It's a big deal now. But your highlights are going to become your children's habits. That your service now will be their standard later. That your encouragement to others is going to be their elevation. Your faith will be others' foundation. So yes, we're fighting for our relationships here and now, but there's an impact to be made that you don't really understand yet. And we're just going to make the highlights that it feels that every chip putting in, man, it's just going to become a habit for us. That we're just, selfishness has no foothold in our relationship. That's my prayer for you today. Listen, I'm very mindful of those who've never received God's grace. Today is a perfect time to do it. You're not going to be able to win this battle without God's grace. Receive it. But I have a burden this morning. I have great compassion for those that are in a season that they're just giving, and giving. That maybe you're in a season that you're in a caregiver type situation. You're caring for someone who's sick. You're caring for an elderly or a parent. I'm thinking of those that are raising small kids, and there's not a lot of thank yous in that. Or that you're in a strained marriage, and what you're pouring in, it feels like there's no reciprocation. And you're giving, and you're giving, and you're giving, and you feel tired, and you feel drained. I just want to encourage you this morning that God sees you. And that your habits now are going to pay dividends later. That what you're doing, God sees you and his blessing is upon you. That as you seek to add value, God's going to add everything you need. Come on, be encouraged by that. Receive the encouragement of the Lord. And let's pray together.